Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wartscenter, Week 7. We are almost done with the regular season. We had another week of crazy matches, and we're starting to see the playoff picture a little more clearly. But without further ado, I have a whole host of friends and Blood Bowl players with me. We've got Coach Cody, Coach Brando, Coach Ivan, and the commish himself, Coach Laws, are in the call. How's it going, everybody?
We are good, but it is a shame the recording isn't capturing our voices.
Awesome, and glad to have you all here. So, let's get right into it. Week 7 scores. So, the Uptow's Chosen Grung tie the Amazonian Snoo Snoo in a surprising result. The Black Forest Guardians beat the Manhattan Mutant Mayhem 2-0.
You got that soundbite from last week? Says
Maybe.
Ivan.
No, I don't have it. I didn't hold that deep of a grudge, but just know, scoreboard. The Polypore Pipers defeat the Vermin Skulkers and do something very special with that win, which we'll talk about a little later. The New England Matriarchs defeat the Los Alamos Aliens in a friendly bout. The Butcher's Bay Dragons defeat the Gloomstalker Dragonaires to prove which Dark Elf team was better Week 7, and maybe we'll see better in the playoffs later on. The Lizards with Attitude defeat the Underheim Mighty Rats in a divisional match, making the Mighty Rats' path to playoffs even tougher than it already was. And on your stream and at Cabal Vision North, you saw the Khazad-dûm Dark Iron defeat the SCLSU Mudclaws 2-1 in a complete bash-off. All right, so Grung Snoo Snoo. So this game was hosted off-site, so yeah. No one knows what happened, but we have the sheet. And the clock was apparently turned off for this game. We don't have turn numbers of when anything happened, but we just gentle reminder. Make sure you record what turn things are happening. But we have the data. So Pepe got things rolling and took one of the 9 Amazonian Snoo Snoo's journey women out. However, the Snoo Snoos retaliated with a casualty of their own before Titsa put in the first and only touchdown for the Grung of the night. After that, they locked on another casualty against the Snoo Snoos, and then a wall of Snoo Snoo's damage happened. Wild Breeze got involved, and 3 journey women took out a whole host of frogs before one unknown journey woman put in the tying score, and a vanity pass towards the end kind of ended it there. So wild stuff. So yeah, I mean, this does change the playoff picture a little bit, which we'll talk about. But yeah, the Snoo Snoo are playing spoiler, it seems. All right, and then on to our next match. Ivan, me and you went toe-to-toe in a friendly. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was we really set the tone turn 1 with the Sticky Woods kill.
Ivan regales the tale about losing Rockstead, and how a crucial crowd surf of his ball carrier led to the ultimate 2-0 loss, instead of a tie.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a casualty, but it sent you off and you had the ball. So the ball went within a few squares of one of my blitzers. I was able to pick it up and trudge away as slow as trees are. And then I think you had 3 chances to blitz it with it was either like a dodge and then 2 go for it, or like a dodge and then 1 go for it. And I think it was always the like last go for it you failed. Yeah. Literally like 3 turns in a row. There were mutants just running at my ball carrier and just falling down at his heels, and I kept running along. So yep. I mean, and you know, that damage you did to Sticky Woods, it earned him an eviction from the team. So so yeah. even though I mean, we are flammable. So, but yeah, but yeah, I mean, the niggling injury not super big, but my last divisional is coming up, so I was like, we need a blocker for week 8. So we uh we called in another reinforcement. But all right, and the Polypore Pipers took on the Vermin Skulkers, and this game was insane. I did witness this game. It was a really close match both ways. Like it was so close to a 1-1. It could have been a 2-1 the other way. It could have been a 2-2. Like it was a very very close match. So I mean, it started off with the Rat Ogre getting involved, taking out gnomes. Unsurprising, a big guy against a little gnome didn't didn't go super well. What was surprising though is after the Polypore Pipers touchdown and the Vermin Skulkers started their drive, is that Patron, the fox, casualtied the Rat Ogre. um, Yes, she put like both Beastmasters in for two guards. I think one of the trees was in there, or two other linemen, and then blitzed in with the fox and got the 2 die, got the pow, got the minus agility on on the lasting injury. Uh, he did Apo it, and it changed to -1 movement, but decided to take the -1 edge for obvious reasons, as you know agility busted is less bad than movement busted for a rat ogre. Um, then, if it wasn't crazy enough, shortly after, Woodford, no, not Woodford, it was the other one, the other tree man, got sent off for fouling. um, the tree was wanting to put the boot in, and he did a few times. Got away with it once. Yeah, didn't get away with it the second time. So, but yeah, the touchdown came on in turn 4. The touchdown was prevented on turn 8, which it was. I mean, it was so close to Skulker scoring, which is why I said it could have been a 2-1 the other way. It just didn't work out that way. She was able to stall the drive at the very end, and then in the second half, the Skulkers put their touchdown in on turn 12, and in a crazy series of stretch plays, Patron puts in the winning score on turn 14. Um, yeah, it was a wild match. I almost wish that I would have brought stuff to record it, because it would have been a good one to throw up for like an extra time recording. All right, Brando, how'd your match go?
Brando expresses his thoughts and feelings on the match. He explains how Mighty Tsuga and Bright Moon put on a master class and ran away with the victory. Had the host checked his audio at any point before the 20-minute mark, you could have listened for yourself. We apologize on behalf of Cabal Vision North for this awful production issue. Coach Coyle will be beaten severely to prevent future blunders.
All right, Dragons Dragonaires. What a match! The Dragons win, but at what cost? I was there when this game was happening. It was happening across from my or no across from the Pipers Skulkers match, and oh yeah, there was 2 fouls this game. The Dragonaire's only 2 recorded fouls all season, and they were in this game. Um, and one left the runner, or one left one of the blitzers dead. Um, and then Sarah, very very much injured. Yeah, I mean the Dragons set the tone. They score early. The Dragonaires beat the hell out of them for a half. Um, the Charlie Bread we just talked about last week. He just got hired a runner for the Dragons, dead. So I I mean,
Commissioner Laws expresses his sadness that Charlie Bread was killed before he had a chance to make a name for himself. There was hype for him to do great things.
yeah, that's Blood Bowl. Yep. Sometimes that's Blood Bowl. There's a lot of ambition stepping onto that pitch, and sometimes you're very short lived. Um, yeah, the Dragonaires equalize right before the half, and then looks like a couple passes from the Dragonaires happened, and a casualty. Butcher Bay Dragons finally hit back and take out Daifu for the game. Another pass, and then it looks like the Dragons put the coffin nail in on turn 16 right at the end there to get the score, but out casualtied by 3. Dragonaires are lethal. Just I know we were talking before the show, and this outing of 3 kills, Wilbert, Charlie, and David, who we'll talk about, um, puts the Dragonaires ahead of the Khazad-dûm Dark Iron for the kill lead. It puts them as 5 kills. They are the most deadly team in the league. And where is he? Cranton Ploker is the kill leader, which we'll also talk about. So, yeah, I mean, it's rough. There's a lot of positionals that the Dragons lost, but I think um, I think they'll still be able to cobble it together in the next few weeks. They've already clinched playoffs, so the goal is to put the team right before week 10, and I think they can do that. So, but that hurts. I think we've all had a game like that where it's like, oh my goodness, just stop rolling armor dice, please. All right, Lost, you want to talk about your match?
Laws spins a beautiful tale about how his unfortunate defeat to Jesse went. As you can see, this is the moment in which Coach Coyle notices that the recording was not picking up anyone in the Discord. We tune in, as we finally get the other coach's audio, and Laws closes out his synopsis of the game. Enjoy.
2-die uphill on Nash out. And Claw is the only reason that anything came good of it because it was an 8 on the armor check. And Taguchi Main actually scores on turn 15, giving me 2 turns to try and respond because despite the fact that I had my players were slowly getting KO'd over the entire second half, I think at one point I only had 6 rats left on the pitch. He had very briefly overcommitted to swarming my players while Taguchi Main had stood at the end zone from turn 13. And I got close enough to him that he said, I'm just going to go ahead and score. And on the kickoff, just because I was down to, I think, 8 rats at the time, I had to spread myself a little too wide to get good enough protection. It came down to a blitz that ended up pushing the ball out of bounds and backwards is the reason that I couldn't possibly have tied the game. So, in the same sense, I've just been telling you for the last, 3 or 4 minutes how was beat up and down, but at the end of the day, I still nearly tied this game, which would have been, honestly, the way this season's gone, a win for me. But I had nothing but praise for Jesse at the end of the day here. He played great Blood Bowl. He played very good positional play, and he's gotten so much better. And at the end of the game, he said he had one actual goal this season. He wasn't worried about trying to go 9-0. He wasn't worried about winning a championship. He realized when he looked at his schedule that he had to play all 3 former champions, and he said he wanted to beat all 3 of us, and he did that.
Wow.
And again, nothing but praise for that. He came out and he I would say pretty humble about knowing that, like, even in a game where I could tell you from my perspective that he was winning 99% of the game, he knew that you can't underestimate your opponent in any situation, and he gave that level of respect to me in every regard, and it ended up being a good game, dice aside, because that's the fun part about Blood Bowl is no matter how good you are about positioning and your strategy, your kickoffs, whatever you have going for you, the dice ultimately tell the story at the end of the day. And even though it wasn't a ton of stuff on the score sheet, it's a win for the Lizards and a loss for the Rats, and we turn around and it's mostly out of our hands now.
Yep. I mean, we'll talk about scenarios. I know you did a really good job of pinning all those down. So, since you're here, when we get to that, I'll just let you run through. But I did have it up in case you didn't make it. So,
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yep. So yeah.
Bro broke out his abacus.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly detailed stuff.
Literally.
And it
Brought
makes
to you by brought to you by PEMDAS.
yeah.
Brought to you by PEMDAS Advocates.
And it makes my head swim sometimes when I gotta like factor in more than what the result of one game. And then when I think I have it figured out, I forget about ties. I forget ties exist, so I'm like, fuck, that changes everything.
Yeah, a couple of
ties.
scenarios, as mentioned, we'll touch on it later in the show. It's there's some of the situations change drastically because of draws, especially for some of the potential outcomes in the bowl division.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, close game. It always seems to come down to just a hairline difference, and it's just not been on the right side for Undheim this season. But who knows? There's still a path. All right, and then Cody, you want to indulge us in your match? We've already seen it. If you've checked out Koalviz North, you've seen it online. But obviously, we can talk about the coach's inside perspective.
Well, I mean, as you all saw, it was a the Coach Ray came in saying he was gonna swing, and by God did we swing. He was saying we're gonna brawl, and I was like, I'm looking forward to it. Let's brawl. That's all I've ever wanted. He came in hot with a chainsaw, missing his croc score, but came in hot with a chainsaw. Chainsaw, I believe, immediately, like on his first or second turn, knocked itself
Yep.
down, but not out completely. Was able to actually knock out one of my players, but ended up getting KO'd and then eventually sent off. But yeah, the entire time he was on offense first half, engaged the entire line just to lock up my entire team essentially, because with as much strength and raw power his 6 sources have, even without a croc score, it took nearly my entire team to just lock in all of that in order to even have a potentially chance of fighting him. And then he just once he felt he was safe enough, he clumped up his skinks, ran around one side and pushed through one side of the field and got himself into position to score. And while putting pressure on him to make sure he didn't stall for too long, he was still just able to get in, score, and then I just proceeded to get the ball and just kind of hammer my way up the field for my first half score, taking more people along the way. And yeah, and then scoring near the end of scoring the last turn of the last half just to cement it as a 2-1. It was a really fun match, honestly. It's like, regardless of what the score sheet shows, it was a pretty fun match where we were both just at multiple times a turn we're taking 1-die blocks at each other because we're like, well, we ain't got nothing else. Let's take a look. And like a lot of times sometimes we would both of us, I think at several times, actually got a skull. I know at one point I got a double skull. Like we were deep in it, just swinging. And it just kind of worked out more advantageous for me.
Yep. I mean, it was a treat to edit and watch. So thank you and Ray for putting on a show. And then of course, like I said it in Discord, but I don't really say it enough. But thank you, like Laws and Holloway for doing the ad, and Ivan for stepping in for Josh to do the pregame and postgame stuff. So it makes
stuff.
everything we do here so much better. So.
I didn't do anything for the pregame.
Oh, sorry. Thanks
Yeah.
It was
to
Koba.
thanks to
thank you,
Koba.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean,
Koba.
like I called him, I guess.
Don't
but-
mean yeah. That's what I mean. Thank you for reaching out
okay,
to
yeah.
San Fran
I've
as
never
the former coach.
It was a lot of connections. We had to get up late at night because we knew it was still early enough in the evening to get a hold of
Yep.
them.
Yep. Dimitri and Koba hard to get a hold of, but we're glad when they're here. So. All righty. Now let's talk about some stats real quick. Experienced vets are most SPP rich players. Alkadike Brightmoon, off of the back of 2 touchdowns in the game against the Aliens, find themselves at the top
Damn.
at 34. Orin Sepp just behind them at 28, and then in the bronze spot, Taguchi Main at 27. A whole host of players nipping at the heels, but we'll have to check back next week to see who is on the podium. All right, and then as it comes down to scoring, Titsa and the Uptow gang seem to be still holding the top for the most touchdowns at 7. Alkadike Bright Moon jumped up there with 2 extra touchdowns this last week to get to 6. Therer's at 6. Taguchi Main is at 6. Euron Shadarius and Timothy all sharing the second place podium. It's getting a little crowded. I'm sure someone will fall off or push the other off eventually. And then in the bronze spot, Madeline Daredevil Murdoch, Forrest Stump, and 2 Croc are all at 5 touchdowns apiece. For interceptions, we haven't had any since week 1, so that stays the same. Sevius
love to see
Lysar
it.
and Guilford Sharab are they are the leaders. They are the gold, and I don't think that's changing. I'm still waiting for Gilfin to get like on the ball or something that helps him pick off to get his second interception, but we'll see. Or no, it was Sevius. He said Sevius you were going to get on the ball, right, Cody?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, I want my balls.
Yep. All right. And then in the passing category, Gnarled Barkley and Jolth Mammoth are fighting for that top spot. 2 elves with a strong right arm looking to cement their spot.
Yeah, I bet an elf would have a strong right arm.
I wonder why. Just behind him though, Slutch Keenbender sitting at 6. Maybe would have been up there with the rest of them had he not been dishonorably injured in last week's match. It's always tough when you lose a game, when you miss a game, to stay on the top of the leaderboard, but he's still right in there, and a couple more games to go. And then Timothy and Degalas are sitting in the bronze spot at 5. As for catches, the other side of the passing stat, Forrest Stump is sitting in number 1 alone at 6, but Dorg Shadowwood is catching him at 4. Those Dragonaires with all of their dump off are starting to really come alive in the ball movement section. Just behind him, Degalas, Titsa, and Corporate Crowcrest all have 3 catches apiece. And then everyone's favorite, casualty stats. Chizakio Izamata sits alone in the gold spot at 8 casualties. Just behind him, the Rat Ogre Craven Slayer and the Big Frog Hopper are at 7. Just behind them, Bomber and the very own star player Mighty Zug are at 6, with a whole host of actual NKBBL players behind that. As for kills, we have someone in the gold spot. We have the Mr. Murder himself so far, Cranton Ploker, a lineman for the Gloomstalker Dragonaires, sitting at number 1. Just behind him, there's a whole host of players with just 1 kill. And I think there's even more under this list, but I didn't grab the tally of everyone. But yeah, so far, 2's the number to beat for those of you trying to become Mr. Murder this year. Oh, nope, too far. And in the fouling category, the top of the podium is very crowded with Alloplex, Farmer Fran, Vicky Valancourt, even though she has been fired, we've been told, and Taguchi Main all sitting at 2 fouls, with a whole host of Dragonaires, Mayhem, Mudclaws, Matriarchs, and Mighty Rat players just behind him.
It's not for lack of trying on Alloplex's part.
I've heard she's getting new cleats for next week.
She is. They are being forged as we speak.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right. Now it's everyone's least favorite moment of the show. It's the moment that we have to, unfortunately, part with the players that make this possible. The obituaries for this week, we honor Rockstead, the Beast Man Runner lineman from the Manhattan Mutant Mayhem. He ran into a tree and it hit back.
The big dumb bastard.
And unfortunately, we also honor this week a fourth of the entire entire Butcher's Bay Dragon squad. As
No!
although they have clinched playoffs, they lose Wilbert D. Robert, their blitzer, Charlie
At
Bread,
what
their
cost?
runner, and David Walton, the lineman.
It's
So
not like this.
it's a rainy day in Butcher's Bay, but I know they are going to use this as momentum as they head into the postseason for revenge.
They're gonna have to weather the storm.
They're gonna do it.
We did get a report. Rockstead's distant relative, Rockhead, is taking his place on the team.
Hey, I heard the shoulder pads and the helmet fit, so
They did, so he was in.
It's
Almost
a
like twins.
it's a good switch, yeah. All right, now we've talked about the death of some players, and let's talk about the birth and the death of some teams. This is the current division standings. There is some discrepancy on the touchdown catch differential. Ignore that. It may not come into play. That is our third tiebreaker scenario, but that's not accurate, so ignore. But what is important is at 15 points, clinching the number 1 seed, the Khazad-dûm Dark Iron in the Blood Division. Just behind him, the Butcher's Bay Dragons. We've already known they've clinched playoffs. They can do, I believe, as well as second, but they can get no worse. They cannot get eliminated. The Amazonian Snoo have been eliminated from playoffs after the tie last week. And then over into the Bowl Division, we have 2 clinches this week, coming off of the back of the Mighty Rats loss. Because Liz with Attitude won, they clinched playoffs. So congratulations, Liz with Attitude. You are going to dance in the postseason. And as a side effect of that game and winning their own game this week, the Polypore Pipers clinched playoffs. So they are also, I mean, they came in week 4 to replace the Trololo Luchadors. And they said, we're here to play for the trophy. Exciting stuff. We love when we see a little tier 3 in postseason play. I think it's happened almost every year. So, except for season 2. Yeah. So, yeah, well done to those teams. We've known from the previous week the Vermin Skulkers are eliminated, but they've got a lot to play for as they gear up for possible redraft next season. So, I think with that, before we get into power rankings, if we want to talk about these teams and their path to the playoffs, the ones that are left, because as you can see, the standings, there was only one locked in at 1, and that's Khazad-dûm. Everything else is fluid besides the fact that Snooze and Skulkers are out. So there's a lot of playoff implications. And I know, Laws, you did all the abacus work. If you care to divulge.
Yeah, sure. I'll dig into it a little bit.
We
do
hear
obviously-
frantic clacking.
We run all of our playoffs through the traditional divisional formats. The top 4 teams from each division, based on their division record, is what will qualify for playoffs. I know that we just briefly talked about how the Pipers managed to actually clinch this week, despite not appearing to be on a full breakaway, and that's because most teams at this point, with 2 weeks left in the season, have played 5 of their 6 divisional games, with some exceptions. Los Alamos, who are currently 4th in the division, are an example of a team that has both of their remaining games as a divisional matchup. But Polypore qualifies into the playoffs despite being tied with the Guardians at 9 because of the tiebreaker between those 2 teams. The Pipers beat the Guardians earlier this season. Because of it, 9 points is guaranteed to finish in the top 4 of the Bowl Division, and with that tiebreaker, Polypore can't be bumped out of it in the process. So they can't go any lower than that. Also going with the Lizzes real quick, with the win, they can only be tied in multiple capacities at this point. And because of those specific sequence of events, they can't end up worse than 3rd as part of the equation. On the other side, for the Dragons, as they have clinched playoffs, they are down to their last game. That last game will be against the Mutant Mayhem, and I'll get to them in just a minute. If they can win that game, they're guaranteed the 2nd spot. If they lose that game, depends on what the Grung do. to try and move up, and not just move up, but clinch their playoff spot in their own accord. So, for each of these teams, and this is just kind of a brief run by for each of them, the Grung are currently in third at the 7 points. They have one game left on their schedule. It'll be a Week 9 matchup. Or my apologies, a Week 8 matchup against the Dark Iron. And that's going to be the tricky part, going up against that number 1 team, because that win will guarantee them a spot in playoffs if they can get it. That puts them at 10 points. But if they lose, that gives a chance for both the Mayhem and the Matriarchs to try and jump over them. Moving down to the next team is the Mayhem. The Mayhem are one of the only teams left that still has 2 games left on their schedule. They have to play in Week 8 against the Mudclaws and Week 9 against the Dragons. So Dragons above them are going to be a tricky game. Mudclaws below them, don't underestimate them. They need to ideally win at least one of those games to guarantee a playoff spot because of a tiebreaker with the Matriarchs that they hold the advantage on. If they can win one of those games, they're basically in. There are some very specific situations where they would be eliminated. The Matriarchs currently in 5th place. They are at 6 points. They only have the 1 game left on their schedule. That is the Week 9 matchup with the Amazonia Snoo. They have to win that game to get in right now, as they are currently on the outside, and the team they're tied with is got the tiebreaker advantage over them, so they are in a must-win situation. As a very strange counterpoint, the last team available in the Blood Division are the Mudclaws at 4 points. They need the win to get enough points to move into the top 4. But in addition to the Mudclaws actually needing to win that game, they also need to have the Chosen Grung and the Mayhem ideally lose all 3 of their remaining games that are in the division. The Mayhem can afford to win games, but in a perfect scenario, even though they lose a tiebreaker to the Grung, they want them to lose, but they can afford the Mayhem to win. In the Bowl division, the Guardians, we talked about them. They're tied with the Pipers, but they lose that tiebreaker, which is the only situation where they can be bumped. That's where things get really messy, because we do have 2 weeks and a bunch of like crisscross divisional matchups here. The Guardians are the 2 seed if they can win against the Dragonaires in Week 8, and the Pipers either lose or draw in Week 9. And on top of that, they need the Aliens to lose or draw either of their 2 remaining games. We look quickly at the Aliens, who are currently sitting in 4th place. They can actually still get the 1st seed if they win out, but they need the Lizards with Attitude to lose their Week 9 game against the Pipers. And if they win one of their 2 remaining games, they can clinch playoffs as a guarantee if the Guardians also lose. This division is pretty more set in stone as far as the top 4 teams. It's just a matter of where they're actually going to lie. It's the outside looking in for the Mighty Rats and the Dragonaires. The Rats are about to walk into this Week 8 matchup against the Aliens. They have to win this game. And even with a win over the Aliens, they would then need to have the Aliens lose to the Dragonaires, which adds another wrinkle to the equation, because the Dragonaires could then bump both of them from the equation, because the Dragonaires need to ideally win both of their games to jump over both of these teams. I think my favorite possible scenario involves a situation where the Aliens beat the Rats.
Charging battery.
The Dragonaires beat both the Guardians and the Aliens. And then the team that gets bumped is the Guardians. I could divulge into a couple of other bizarre scenarios, but depending on who you're rooting for, it's going to come down to the wire. The Mayhem just need to win a game over in the Blood Division. Same with the Grung and the Matriarchs. You could say that about any sport. You just win the games and you make it in. But the pressure of each of those individual situations becomes the tricky part, especially when you consider who you have to play in those games. Like, for example, again, the Grung have to play the Dark Iron. They have to get, ideally, a win against the first place team. That's no small matter. The Rats have to beat the Aliens to sneak into playoffs, and even then, it's out of their hands because of we were talking about how dangerous the Dragonaires were earlier in the show. They're third in overall casualties right now, despite their rookie season and still trying to find their footing as far as winning games is concerned. But if there's ever a time for them to win games, it's now because they can sneak in themselves. I know that was a bit of a rant, but that,
No,
yeah,
it's good
that's I
information.
think
Yeah.
the beauty of playoff pictures, and there are some people who are out there listening intently to like yes, and they're clackling their abacus as well. What is the plural? What is the plural of abacus?
Abakai.
Is it abaci?
I don't know. I
No,
don't
but
fucking know.
Abacus.
I don't know if it's abaci, but I like it.
Yeah,
Abacuses. Abacuses.
Moral of the
Love
story, though.
me the abacuses.
We've got 4 teams that I think in both divisions are showing that they're probably the teams that will get in just because of the merit of how many games they have left to play. Like both the Aliens and Mayhem have the advantage of having both of their remaining games being divisional games, and that makes it so even though they're fourth, the fact they're fourth is partially because they played the one fewer game. So it's not nearly as close as some of what I've just explained might sound, but at the same time, that means they still have to go out and win those games to close the door.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say that this season is arguably the best we've ever had because of the parity across both divisions and just the fact that we're heading into the final weeks of play and only 2 teams are really eliminated. Like
Yeah,
I feel like in the past it's a bit more cut and dry. The fact that there's so much up in the air still is insane.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. Normally this far in, we know what's going on generally, but we don't have a fucking clue what's gonna happen.
It's closer and closer as this game becoming to real life, where we don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Nope.
And we have a pair of first time. I mean the bowl division. It's all new coaches to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Round
like
of applause
massive
for them,
congratulations, like Jesse and Hillary. Like
Yeah.
they make playoffs
Yeah.
for the first time in their careers. So like that's super great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're not seeing
I
the
think-
same old guard just constantly run the table, and that's awesome to see that kind of turnover.
Right.
For some of us, less so. But
This goes to show anybody can beat
Anybody.
and we
Yeah.
are idiots.
yeah,
But crucial information we have confirmed: the plural for abacus is abaci or abacuses.
okay, it's
one
either.
is correct.
Make
Oh,
up your
okay.
mind. Make
I'm
a
sorry,
decision, you
Abaci
waffle.
is-
I'm sorry,
Abaci.
Abakai.
it's not abacuses, so that one's definitely out.
Oh, damn.
Well, if you pronounce it that way.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, you heard it here first. There's a lot of weight to these matches. So as you go in, and if you're part of the league, like it's time to lock in. All right, and with that, we'll go and look at the power rankings for this week. Now, I was informed that the analysts this week took an extra vacation, so they maybe didn't dig as deep as they normally would to do power rankings. So you'll see there is not a lot of change here, and I really don't know why, but I just suspect that they're being lazy.
I mean, Winkins is throwing me down the shaft, but whatever, Aggie.
Yeah, Aggie was not feeling it. Overall, like he had the second least amount of movement. Really, it's Boomer for me that says, nope, I had it right last week. We'll change 4, 5, 6 around, but I had it right last week, so we're gonna stick with the same. Even though the Pipers clinch playoffs, and he's like, nah, they're still bottom. I'm like, bro, they've already told you they're top 8. They've told you they're top 8. The Dragons, they've told you they're top 8.
Boomer's simply not impressed.
I guess not, but like, it's just insane to me. And like Mudclaws, outside looking in, I'm sure they drop, but like their path is really tough to prove that they're top 8 at this point. It's just it's I don't know. I don't know what they're smoking, but maybe they'll get a clearer picture next week.
Maybe they need to swap to diet lean.
maybe.
I think at least from like I I understand where some of these guys in the power rankings come from.
Mhm.
Just specifically give flowers to those Mudclaws.
Yeah.
Is a stat that I personally run, since I do obviously run all of the score sheets, is looking at total differential for
Yep.
both touchdowns and casualties, because obviously some teams are better at one or the other. So
Mm-hmm.
having it be a combined metric, I think is actually a really good scale in the long run. The Mudclaws, a lot like our other Lizard team, the Lizard with Attitude, are a relatively low event team. But for all the teams that are currently in the bottom half of the overall standings, all those teams are negative in total differential except for the Mudclaws,
Right.
who sit at a dead even 0.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
they've shown that they can go blow for blow with a lot of good competition at this point. They just haven't gotten the wins yet.
Yeah, and just like a peek behind the curtain, that makes a lot of sense with what you're saying. Is because these power rankings are algorithmically um, placed based on those differentials and different combinations of those differentials depending on which analyst is looking at them. If you catch my meaning. So yeah, I mean it's not like a shock. It's funny how those can tell a different story than what the record is telling. So. But yeah, I mean, generally overall, like matriarchs, they win a big match against the aliens. They generally go up. Black Forest Guardians, when they're friendly, they generally go up. Mudclaws losing to the Dark Irons sees them go down. Aliens lost sees them go down. They're a bit mixed on the Dragons, I assume, because of how many players they had just recently lost, even though they get the win. Mayhem's a bit of mixture. I don't know if Aggie just doesn't like his former coach. I didn't hear. I have no rumors. We're not speculating, but people are talking. Pipers come up as they've clinched playoffs a bit, but how much is in question. Snooze Snooze come up after a heartbreaking tie against one of the top teams, and then Mighty Rats take another loss and drop in the standings. So generally makes sense, but there's some interesting changes. All right, we're going to talk about all the teams where they currently stand and how they are going to go into week 8, and then we'll talk about matchups. So the Snooze, they come in this week with a lot less journeymen. I'm sure they're thankful for that. Only 2-3 journeymen this week. As some of their missed next games come back, they're still a little shorthanded, but they look to finish out their season with as much health as they can. The Polypore Pipers go into their final friendly match with a few more linemen. Kettle has been fired due to his lasting injury, and one was hired, and Jameson was hired. So they picked up a few gnomes. Woodford also gets guard, so that sees him helping out the other tree and the Beastmasters to make some better blocks. Mighty Rats add a few linemen, and if I'm reading it right, randoms on a lot of these.
Last ditch effort for their swan song is what it's going to be for the Mighty Rats, with the exception of Craven Slayer. The last 2 weeks with those struggles, he was looking to get Claw, but went ahead and spent that SPP on Stand Firm for the Chosen. Stand Firm for aspiring roger coaches out there. I like as a down the road skill with Frenzy. It's a great way to keep yourself from getting into too much danger.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else, yeah, it was all randoms, and one of those lineman hires was to replace a lineman who was bloating the roster a little bit with a skill and an armor down. So, yeah,
Oh yeah,
when
I
you're
didn't
starting
change
to,
that.
yeah, when you're starting to push your TV, you go ahead and say, all right, maybe I don't need the big hand lineman.
Yep, fair enough. Yes, I mean, Stand Firm Frenzy allows you to play the sideline extremely aggressively, so I look forward to seeing that, and we may get to see that in the near future. No spoilers. But yeah, a lot of we've got break tackle on a blitzer, strip ball on a blitzer, all very interesting. I think I like now you have a ball sacker with block, mighty blow, strip ball. So Rat Chungus is going to be a menace, I think. Cole Cindertail becomes a bona fide catcher, and then Corporate Crowcrest is become proficient at fending. So yeah, Mighty Rats in the final hour gearing up, getting ready to make the season what it needs to be. On the other side of the Rat Factory, the Vermin Skulkers, Tretch Venom Fang picks up Accurate, Moore's Magby picks up Kick, and Raxcact, however, he has been missed next game. We won't see him next week, but the week after that, he will come back with Juggernaut. So, also a good skill, I think, for Rat Ogres. Generally on the Skaven team, they are kind of your strength piece. They're your blitzer. Juggernaut helps. It's a cheaper way to kind of get around block and allows them to push better and hopefully get some more people knocked out and or possibly in the crowd. So
Absolutely love this for them.
yeah, it's a good. It's good. I see good things in Rakt's future, especially coming from I believe he was a lineman that went through some mid-season training. We'll
It's
call
been a
it.
long year for Raxcact.
Yeah.
He has seen some things.
Yeah. But we love having him here. He's great. He's a pillar of the NKBBL. All right. For the Gloomstalker Dragonaires, a couple level ups. Grundy Grudiger picks up Block. A Witch Elf was hired. We didn't catch her name. I'm sure we'll get to know it before the season comes to a close. Daifu, the other Witch Elf, picked up Block. And they come in at 1,400 in a divisional match. That means a lot for their playoff implications. The Manhattan Mutant Mayhem, like Ivan alluded to, Rockhead has joined the team. He does not have Strip Ball. Forgot to delete that, but that's fine. Just ignore. We had a limited amount of time to get rolled up this week, so
I'm just hearing excuses and excuses. Why don't you just step it up?
you know
I
what?
think you're doing a great job.
I'll do that for you. Next time, flawless. All right, Alaplex picks up Kick. So not only is she a intense fouler, but she's also a very good kicker.
She learned it from booting all the heads in.
Right. She's just got a strong right or left leg. She right or left legged?
She's fun fact, left-legged.
Left legged. There you go. That's the key. Little unorthodox. People don't see it coming. All right. And then for the Butcher's Bay Dragons, no upgrades from what I'm currently seeing. However, Sarah Town is missed next game. I believe that is where we stand. Obviously, if there's upgrades, we will talk about them next week. But didn't see anything on the sheets this week. All right, Los Alamos Aliens. Hudson is missed next game, so he won't be there. But they still come in with a healthy roster of 11 as they look to take on their next divisional bout. All right, the Mudclaws, the first of the very few power rankings changes. They dropped 2 from 4. Vicky Valancourt has been fired after she got evaluated for her injury, and Valentine Valancourt has been hired. Farmer Fran is missed next game, so a couple people down, but Mama's back, and the Mudclaws are going to fight to see if they can get to the playoffs with a little bit of help. Oh, Bobby Boucher got blocked. Sorry, didn't want to forget about Bobby. So he's becoming a great source. All right, the Black Forest Guardians, they fire blocker Sticky Woods and hire blocker Cheetah Woods because they have a very important divisional matchup coming this week. Twiggy Stardust picks up Dodge to help make a robust set of blockers because it's really needed now. And Trunk Debunk picks up Pro on a random, so he is becoming a lineman to be feared. All right, the New England Matriarchs, Pisto Thermodosa is next game. However, they have elected to hire a new lineman. We also haven't caught her name, but the NKBBL will get to know her as she kicks off this Wednesday. And the Liz with Attitude, after their big win, Max Smeller is looking to become the leader of the team. So he'll help give them a little extra coaching and obviously the extra reroll that comes with that. And then Action Dragon picks up multiple block. So Strength 4 guy looking to say, hey, I can take 2 at once. And we'll see in the future as he gets into playoffs how active and effective he becomes. The Uptow's chosen Grung pick up guard on Bogart, so one of their blitzers becomes a good guard piece. Timothy, however, is missed next game. We thought had been strength busted, but it turns out he was actually fine. It was just a few shoddy doctors that were looking at that broken arm, and they just didn't get it right. But he'll miss a week, but he will be back next week full strength. And in his place, Gore Oak, the second, a lineman, has been hired to round out the team and give them a fighting chance in their next match. All right, and then at our number one spot, the Khazad-dûm Dark Iron. Not a ton of changes, but a very impactful change as Obaldin Therer has gone for the stat increase and got his pick of the litter with a 16. So he is now an agility 2 runner.
My God.
Yeah, so
We're reaching levels that shouldn't be possible.
Yep. Slippery dwarf. So yeah, that's a scary proposition. But yeah, they've punched their ticket. They know they're the number one seed, and now they're fleshing out to make sure that they are the scariest team fighting for the cup.
It's working.
All right, week 8. We got a lot of good matches for you. The Manhattan Mutant Mayhem versus the SCLSU Mudclaws in a divisional match. The Los Alamos Aliens and the Anaheim Mighty Rats face off in a divisional match. That will be our marquee match this week, I believe. Depends on how it votes out, but I think that's currently what the fans want. The New England Matriarchs and the Vermin Skulkers go head-to-head in a friendly. The Black Forest Guardians and the Gloomstalker Dragonaires both fight for playoffs. The Lizards with Attitude take on the Amazonian Snoo Snoo in a friendly match of Lustrian mayhem. And the Uptow's chosen Grung fight to stay alive against the number one seed Khazad-dûm Dark Iron. And then our last friendly of the evening will be the Polypore Pipers taking on the Butcher's Bay Dragons. So both teams which have clinched playoffs and maybe a primer for a match to come. But all right, first off in our matchups, we've got the Mutant Mayhem versus the Mudclaws. The line is set very tightly and very slightly favored to the SCLSU Mudclaws by 0.11 of a touchdown. However, the analysts are saying it's all Mudclaws.
They can keep trying to break me down with their words, but my performance will speak for itself.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, very close in TV here. There's a $50K difference. The Mudclaws will get a little bit of money to spend, but it's generally going to be Mutant on Lizard. What do you guys think about this match?
I'm going to, I think, go against the grain here. I'm taking the Mutant Mayhem on this one.
Ooh.
Only because, and I have nothing but praise for all the coaches this season. I haven't been on the broadcast that much in the last couple of weeks, and as we mentioned, the parody and the lean, it's been absolute fun. Everyone's been great, both in sportsmanship, and the fact of the matter is, everyone's gotten way better at the game as a whole. It is a truly competitive league. And in that sense, for as good as Ray has gotten in his short time playing with us, he's got a very good Mudclaws team here. Mom of the Croc scores back up front. He's got his positioning down, but there's something wily about how the Mayhem play. And I think that'll be the difference maker here, especially with the horns. I think the failure to blitz efficiently was part of the reason things went south for the Mayhem in week 7. I think as long as the dice roll out a little bit better, the Mayhem, at the very least, I think, play this game to a draw.
I agree. It's two very equally swingable teams that can very easily brawl with each other, but also just both coaches love to play a very wily game, I believe, as you put it. They both love to play hot and loose when they want to or when they can, but they also know how to dial it in when they need to. I've been speaking with the Mudclaws coach. I know he is from originally thinking he was out of the playoffs entirely and having found out that he actually does have a potential to squeak in, he is going to be trying to do some wild stuff. He's going to be doing everything he can and just going ham and wild as he can. But I'm excited. This is going to be a fun match.
This should definitely be a really good match. I'd agree. I'd give the lean a little bit closer to Ivan. They both have a lot to play for, but Ivan, I mean, this is your potential chance to punch a playoff ticket.
Oh,
The
I
biggest
want
factor.
it.
Oh, I'm aware. I think the biggest factor here that we definitely have to just call out is the speed. He's down. He has 3 regular skinks and a chameleon skink, and your whole team is like slow. So to me, the critical factor here is, can you stop the speedsters slinking around the sides and scoring on your ass? If you can do that, it's winnable. But it's going to be a close one, I think.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
A little quiet there, Ivan. What's your take?
I'm going to squash these scales with my shells. Ray, if you're listening, I'm calling you out. I'm going to kick your scaly tail.
We
Quick,
love
put a
Violence.
we love it.
I'm
No,
saying,
it's all
now you can play that next week when I get my ass
it's
kicked.
all recorded. Yeah, I know. Like I think it's gonna be a very close match. Obviously, both coaches have they still have something to play for. One side's a little more desperate. Like this is a must win, whereas the other side, like for the like Mudclaws, they lose, they're probably out. I think if they tie, they're out. So they got to win.
It is a must win for the Mudclaws.
It's must win. So
Yeah.
that desperation may tip it in their favor, I think. Whereas Mayhem, I think they could play a little loose and get it done next week.
There's nothing going to be loose about next week.
So
I'm tight as fuck.
I'm not saying
You never lose.
I'm not making
I'm never loose,
yeah,
man.
I'm not
I'm
making
so tight.
I'm not making accusations. I'm just pulling out hypotheticals. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very tight. I think the line is set correctly. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. All right, the New England Matriarchs take on the Vermin Skulkers. The line is set to the New England Matriarchs over a touchdown, and the analysts are firm in their belief of the Matriarchs. I think this may have a lot to do with the fact that Vermin Skulkers don't really have playoff implications anymore. But I like you said, anybody can win any match. So how are we feeling?
You know, I think the Skulkers coach has really been improving with each and every game. So I don't think that it's going to be a landslide for the Matriarchs. I think the Skulkers are going to make them really work for it. But I do see the Matriarchs winning this.
Mhm.
I'd agree.
I'm gonna have to echo the sentiment.
Oh,
Go ahead, my man.
Oh, okay. My man. Okay. No, I'll keep it quick. I'll keep it brief. I still expect the Matriarchs to win. They really want to ramp up, get themselves in playoff shape before week 9. I do expect it to be a bit higher scoring. I think probably similar to last week for the Skulkers, where it's like a 2-1. But these are somewhat similar squads in that they're lower armor end. But the fact that the Rat Ogre's out, that's gonna be pretty big.
That sucks.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is definitely a game that probably still favors the Matriarchs, but especially in the last couple of weeks for the Skulkers, they've shown a ton of prowess. And for as much we can praise the Matriarchs for their, having a full depth roster, having an experienced coach, the Skulkers have shown, I think, a confidence when the opponent is also a low armor opponent. I'm scaven coach myself, but I love getting into a fight for no good reason and take every advantage you get in those situations. And having been through that experience with him personally, this could be a game where the speed of the Skaven might actually be the difference maker, if not for the skill differential that Amazons get to bring to the table.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I lean more towards the Matriarchs, but not like I would go with the Matriarchs, not necessarily because of like a coach difference. I just think that if I were in the Skulkers position, I have I have stats to play for next season if I'm redrafting. So the win means not so much. It's a little extra cash to rehire or at the end of the season, but SPP is the real goal. So if I were eliminated from playoffs and I'm redrafting, I'm just trying to score, pass, Kaz, whatever I can do to pad my players out to find some stars for next season. So I think because there's different goals between the two teams, I think I give the edge to the Matriarchs here. But I think Skulkers can get a lot done and still keep it close.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite end of where we're looking at with the Mudclaws, where the Mudclaws are going to possibly play a wave for the fact that it's their last chance to make it in. The Skulkers have nothing to lose.
Right, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
That's always scary. All right, the Black Forest Guardians take on the Gloomstalker Dragonaires. The Black Forest Guardians are favored by nearly a touchdown at 0.84. The analysts think the Guardians are going to punch their playoff ticket this week. What do you guys think?
I think this is going to be definitely not. I'm not seeing any straight out devastating defeat on either side. I'm gonna have to go with the Guardians on this one. I think that they're really their team is starting to get a little bit more dialed in. We're getting more skills spread out, making them much more of a well-rounded team, and I think that the Dragonaires are going to have two elf teams, high edge teams, both have been able to handle the ball. One being a slow version of an elf team, but with significantly higher armor, versus a standardly fast elf team with average armor across the board. Is it going to be a war of attrition? And then if it is, who's going to be able to come out on top? I don't know. I think it's going to be a whole lot of it's going to come down to positioning from both coaches to see who can get like really start getting an advantage on either side.
I think I would give the lean to the Guardians as well. A lot of experience there. They get a bit of a TV an inducement package here, which they've done well in the past with those in their matches. I will say the big caveat here is the Dark Elves are kind of like a jack of all trades, and in this scenario, they do outspeed you on average. And in this particular instance, this team is like over 75% block, right? That might come into play, especially I mean my most recent match, those favorable two dies, you get a skull and a both down, it'll come back to haunt you. So if there was any indicator of how that might go for the Dragonaires for a win, I would think it'd have to involve that speed factor and just the skill package that they got, because I know they got a lot of randoms. So
Yep.
just making maximum use of that.
Yep.
I am going to call this one right down the middle. I think this has a very high potential to be played to a draw. And I'm going to say that is because the Gloomstalkers do have, albeit mildly, a speed advantage in these situations. They're a fast and loose team. I think it ultimately will come down to how they come out the gates because of that fast and loose style they tend to have. I think they have some difficulties getting the play to move forward off of the kickoff. But if they can get that momentum rolling, this Dragonaires team has the potential to be, I would outright say, a lethal team. That Armor 10 might be what is the saving grace for the Guardians. And if it wasn't for the Armor 10, I would put this as a very winnable game for the Dragonaires. The Guardians are probably the more well-rounded team as a whole. As far as like, especially with a more dedicated play style, I think there's a little more cohesiveness in that. But in the parallel, and as we've mentioned before in previous broadcasts, Dark Elf teams have this habit of being Swiss Army knives. So it's a matter of just pulling all your resources together and using it in the right way, and that's where the Dragonaires could potentially come in here and steal the game even.
Yep. I mean, I think this one's tight. Um, there is there is a similarity, I think, between the Dark Elves and the Sea Elf Secret League team in that you generally are high armored elves. The only caveat is you exchange movement for a little bit more armor in the Sea Elf case. So in that instance, I think this one's going to come down to I'm calling it's going to come down to like one or two plays, either like a pass that fails, something with the ball that fails at some point, or like the war of attrition eventually goes the other way. Because I have a feeling this ball is going to bounce around a lot. We've got a lot of edge two. We've got a lot of dump off. We've got dedicated catchers, throwers. I think it's going to be a very elf-like game. So it's either that extra movement speed is gonna win out, or the higher armor is gonna allow for it. So I'm inclined to agree with you. The time may be coming, but of course I'm gonna say myself. But that's just how I roll. But
You can't win unless you believe you're gonna win.
exactly.
Right.
But no, I look forward to it. I've been looking. This game's been circled all season for me because me and Buckner go way back. So I'm excited to get this one knocked out. All right, Liz with Attitude take on the Amazonian Snoo Snoo at our biggest deficit on the betting line. The Liz with Attitude are favored by over 2 touchdowns, and the analysts predict Liz's all the way. What do you guys think?
I'd agree. I think they're going to win by 2. It's going to be a 2-0 game.
Yep.
I think it is a very good shot at the Liz's winning. But yeah, I am looking at a 500,000 fucking petty cash.
Yeah, like
Snooze
half
Snooze
a team.
showed. Yeah,
It is about half the team's worth.
The Snooze Snooze show against their match against the Chosen Grunk that they are not afraid to use inducements, and they generally do quite well with using them. So 500K, that would they're going to be able to do a lot of wild stuff with 500K. Will it win them the match? Maybe, probably not, but I think it's definitely going to make them a very chaotic team for the Lizards to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
think
can't help
that.
we're doing
yeah.
this again.
Not all right. After you. Go ahead.
I'll take the one of those. I'm gonna echo Cody's sentiments. I think in just a vanilla game, you'll look at these rosters on paper. This is a 2-0 for the Lizzes. I could argue it's 3-0 for the Lizzes, but I think it's more of a playstyle thing. The Lizzes are a very calculated approach when it comes to scoring, so I would normally just give them a 2-0 advantage here. But the Amazonian Snoo Snoo, they get 500K to play with, and exactly as you said, that game with the Chosen Grung, an upset, and it wasn't even a win for them. It was a draw. The fact that they have the idea of what it takes to equalize a game, they've come really far over the course of a season that has been nothing but despair, all things considered. Most of their team has died over the course of the season, but they have taken this opportunity to say, hey, the chips are down, we're given the resources, what are we going to use to try and level the playing field? And I think they have a good idea of what it takes to do that now. I don't think they're going to win this game, but I don't think it's going to be the blowout that it might look like on paper.
Yeah.
The 500K is just a lot, and if it weren't for that, I think the 2-0 is pretty much a done deal just with how they've been playing. I kind of expect kind of an inverse of the Skulkers, where the Lizzos have already clinched, and this is their game before their final divisional to get better seeding potentially. I see this as they're going to probably play it a bit safer, maybe, especially depending on what inducements the Snoo-Snoos do take, and just try and get some SPP on some players. If they win, great. If they don't, great. Maybe they do want to pad the record, but all in all, for them, this is like no sweat off their back when it comes to overall standing because they're good. So it's just for them, it's just survivability at this point. And I think for the Snoo Snoos, I don't know if they plan on redrafting or anything like that, but just getting something going, getting some development going, and just getting a good feel for their team. I know it's late in the season, but I mean, tying the Grung last week is so big. So, and this could be a warm up for their final game against the Matriarchs at the end of the season. Maybe pull another upset. So, kind of a low stakes game overall, but I don't expect it to be a total blowout. I think it'll probably be closer to a 2-1, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to plant the seed. The LWA, they are still in that chase to win the Coil Cup, so this game might still matter to them a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. It's between them and
Cause of Doom.
the Cause of Doom right now. Yeah,
Yep. So
could happen.
there's still things to play for. Um,
True.
yeah. I mean, I think I lean Liz's, just because like they've come back after the break. After taking that loss to the aliens, they've come back and just asserted their dominance again. So it's kind of just shown to me that the Los Alamos game was just a hiccup in their campaign, and I don't know if anything's stopping them now.
No.
So, all right, the Dark Iron take on Ubtao's Chosen Grung. The line is set to the Dark Iron at 0.67. And the analysts predict Dark Iron all the way. Now, bear in mind, this is technically on the power rankings, the number 1 versus the number 2. So it's looking to be an electric match, power versus speed, essentially. What do you guys think of this one?
I'm looking forward to a lot of squashed frogs. I think it will be an interesting match. The frogs definitely faster than the dwarves. Dwarves notoriously have short legs, and as we know, the frogs have very long legs. But that all being said, I think I am gonna hand it out to the Dark Iron, and I think it's gonna be a 2-1 game.
Battle of leg sizes. I never even considered it.
No, that's actually how I determine every match. Fun fact.
Just measure butt to ankle.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when it was the gnomes versus the rats last week, I was like, damn.
I'm very I guess I'm sad is the simple way of saying it. I know that the TV is equalized because of this, but with Timothy being out, this isn't quite the heavyweight matchup that I think the fans would want this to be. Seeing both these teams at full strength is, I think, the way I would want to look at it, and I think would also be the best chance, even if it were to give, inducement money over to the Dark Iron. I think the best chance that the Growing winning would require them to have the brothers on the pitch together, but they're going to have to rely on the back of Titsa to try and score 2 touchdowns. I think we've seen that the method to win a game against Dwarfs is find out how to score that second touchdown. Otherwise, you're just going to end up in the meat grinder and having nothing to show for it. So it's a case of how much are you willing to give to get that win, and in the position that the Grung are in right now, they need this win.
I think that the dynamicism, am I saying words right? The dynamic duo of Timothy and Titsa, the fact that based on the play sheets from what I've seen, they kind of interact with each other throughout the game, whether it's passing to each other, catching with each other. Like having both of them on the field makes it very hard as a defender, I would imagine, because I haven't gotten to play them, to defend against. So taking Timothy out of the equation, yeah, their TV is similar, but how are they moving the ball forward if it's almost going to be pretty obvious that it's Titsa, right? I'm just curious how this is going to go offensively for them. It's an uphill battle. It's the meat grinder. We've talked about this all season. They have the speed, especially with sprint, but I as someone that's played with more of like a one-dimensional offense, I'm sure they could work around with maybe their blitzers or the other catchers, but having both of them on the field is just so impactful. I feel like,
Yeah,
and not having them.
Maybe it's a dart game.
Yeah, this is going to have to be
Maybe.
Dart's breakout game if Ubtao is going to want to win this game.
Yep.
Yeah, someone else has to step up besides Titsa, I think, if they're going to win
always
this.
a rookie superstar waiting in the wings. Just gotta find him. So.
Yep.
They give him the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. This is definitely going to be an interesting match. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't had a chance to play against the Krung since maybe last year. I haven't had a chance to play them at all. I'm always going to bet on myself. I have confidence that I will. I'm looking at this and probably seeing a 2-1 game as well. I'm expecting them to at least score once. Maybe even like a 2-2 tie. They may even win against me. I'm gonna do my best to not make that happen, and I'm going to try to win myself. But regardless, I can guarantee for a fact that I'm going to make it as painful as I possibly can.
As you do.
Yes, as I am known to do. That is what I am known to do. I am going to do again.
Yeah, I think yeah, this one will be interesting. And I do want to call out we do a poll in our Discord every time to see which match ends up on the stream, and this was in the runner-up spot. So the Northern Kingdoms really wanted to see this match as well. And when we get that red zone package, we'll get to see all the excellent matchups, but not until then.
Until then, blackout rules.
Yep. Until
If you want
then,
to see that sooner rather than later, please
Yep.
subscribe to our Patreon.
that we don't have.
And if,
We
and if,
And our only
currently
feed.
have, but if you seem interested, we will make one.
Absolutely.
also, if you're even more
You monetize
interested, we
part of the
do
broadcast?
already have an OnlyFans.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It's just a room with a bunch of box fans. Don't get too excited now, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone cringes when I say that,
Yeah.
but I'm like, what? We like airflow.
Yeah.
What's the big idea?
When the Game of Blood Bowl
Actually,
gets
a
a little
lot
too
of
heated,
paperweights.
yeah. When a Game of
The
Blood Bowl
big-ass
gets a little
fans.
too heated, you got to go into the OnlyFans room and just cool off. All right.
Ah,
All right. Anyway, the Polypore Pipers take on the Butchers Bay Dragons in a friendly match. The Butchers Bay Dragons are favored. However, the analysts are a little torn. Aggie and Lucy are saying it's going to be the Dragons. Lucy betraying her old coach. And then Boomer says it's going to be the Pipers. What do you think for these two teams that are already bound for postseason?
I think it'll be an interesting match for sure, but like I'm saying, legs. Gnomes, tiny legs. Elves, kind of okay legs. Gonna hand this to Dragons Bay. I think it's gonna be a 1-0 game.
Concise. I like it.
man, have you seen the Pipers this season?
No, they're tearing
like-
shit up. They are.
They're like,
So
no,
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's gonna really hurt, but I think the Dragons will do it.
I don't think it's gonna be a shutout. I think.
Oh no, not at all.
Well, you said 1-0.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think it's gonna be a very hard fought 1-0.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think it's gonna be 1-0.
Yeah, I don't know. From just observing,
Pipers are nuts.
Yeah, the Pipers, those foxes are some slippery little buggers, and that coach loves them. And I think the Dragon coach will definitely be aware of that, but I don't know if he'll be able to outright stop them entirely for the entire match. I'm expecting scores on both sides, potentially a tie or at least a high scoring tie. I'm thinking maybe even a 2-2 to like a 2-3 victory either way. Honestly, both of these coaches.
that'd be wild.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see some wild movement on both sides and both wild ball handling, just shifting up and around the field around each other. It's gonna be a really good match.
We've actually had, I'm looking back at a lot of the stats of the season. It's been a pretty low scoring season relative to past years. We used to have a lot of 3-0s and 3-1s, but we've only had a handful of 3-touchdown games. And I'm actually going to follow up by saying this is probably also going to be a high scoring game as well. That idea that it's a 2-2 or even something as wild as a 3-2 seems very viable. Pipers like to run it down. They're not afraid to go uphill blocks. They're not afraid to do, a little bit off the wall things. I mean, we talk about having a fox run up and take down a rat ogre. And I would say it's an equal looking game here. It is a tier 3 matchup, of course. But the Dragons coming out of a game where they had 3 of their players die, it's mostly going to be a get right game for them. We talked about how both teams here are already in playoffs. It's kind of a game to shrug off a little bit for both of them. If I'm either one of these coaches at the end of the day, I go in here just trying to preserve my team to the best of my ability. If you win, great. If you don't go out of your way to not. I've always been big on the idea that Blood Bowl is not 9 weeks, 9 games. It's one big game that has happened to be played over 9 weeks.
Charge complete.
And this is just a late part of the season where you're posturing for the postseason. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at with the Dragons here. You got to figure out how to put your team back together after going down. A lot of resources you've taken the time to build up. And if you're the Pipers had the late start in the season. They've hit the ground running, and this is a chance for them to figure out what their cornerstone pieces are going to look like.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about, like you said, Dragons just lost a quarter of their team essentially, and what's wild to me is they still come out higher in team value. So I mean, yes, it's against tier 3, but like you're coming in shorthanded and knowing that your opponent gets some inducement. It's not great. But yeah, I mean, I think Pipers like to play it fast and loose, and it's a situation where you're allowed to kind of play fast and loose because it's a friendly, and that doesn't really impact the playoff picture for her at all. But yeah, I mean, I think I lean Pipers here, not because it's my wife. Actually, it's because it's my wife. But
My wife.
Hard
but
answer.
I will say, like, since she's taken over for Ciudad El Gigante, started with a tie, then had that friendly loss, but since then has just been banging it out, win, and I think that momentum's starting to build. So I see her carrying that to the playoffs.
I do want to say, keep on the lookout. We've been waiting all season for Lucy Hunt's the Assassin to do something wild, and this is exactly the type of game where an assassin would pop
Ooh.
off.
Absolutely right.
Mhm.
Any
Stab,
second.
stab.
It's very, very valuable in this situation, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. And under the bright lights of the NKBBL,
I
you'll
didn't
get
want
to
this.
see. You didn't want this?
I didn't want this.
I also did not vote
Hey,
for this, but this
but-
is what the people wanted.
This is what the people
Yeah.
want, but
Yep.
but
Yeah.
like I tell all the coaches, if you don't want to do it, we'll find somebody else. It's completely fine.
And here we
Nah,
are.
I'm
All
that's fine.
yeah,
They're both like, it's
all-
fine, it's fine.
It's
all-
It's
fine.
fine. We've already
fine.
been finding each other all
Right.
episode.
I just think it's funny how
the joke I always make is I like to put it up to a vote. I like to know what people think and what people want, because obviously that's what's best for everybody.
yeah, of course.
However, I never said that I never said that this was a democracy. So, we reserve the right to change any matchups. So
at any
know.
time for any reason.
So when I mean this is what you're going to see live, it's just our prediction.
Our
Things,
strong prediction.
things may
The
change.
poll closes. The poll closes in 8 minutes, and
Yep.
it's currently leading.
And there may be a recount.
By
Who
a-
knows?
There may be a recount.
But either way,
paper votes.
either way, on stream or not, this game will happen. The Los Alamos Aliens are favored by a third of a touchdown. Aggie and Lucy say it's going to be the Aliens. However, Boomer says the Mighty Rats are ready to make their turnaround in the 11th hour. Both coaches are here. I'll just let you guys talk about it. Not all at once.
No, you. No, you.
No, you.
We've been interrupting each other like
They couldn't
all.
stop
I know.
you.
I was really
Now
hoping
you're
you guys would
still
just start at the same time
Start
again.
I know, we put them on the spot. Now they are just like, oh.
Oh.
Yeah, I absolutely hate talking about myself more than anything, but someone's got to do it, I guess.
I love talking about you. I do it all the time behind your back
In my walls.
and your walls.
Um, No, it's been an absolutely miserable season, and I as I mentioned during the game recap earlier in the show, a lot of those games have been just feeling like I'm getting diced. I've had almost every single one of the games I've played this season. It feels like the first four turns of the game are just some of the worst luck I could possibly have. So I have one shining light this season, and that is the only game that I've won this season was that week 5 game against the Dragonaires when I put up 3-0, and that was a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it's like to have a game that doesn't go wrong as Skaven. And I've been chasing that high all season because I know for a fact that this team is still fully capable of doing that. Took all the random level ups because this is pretty much going to be the swan song. Even if I win this game, there's no guarantee that I'm taking a trip to playoffs because it's out of my hands. Even if I do win it, um, I have to rely on all the resources I have. I've been doing this long enough. I have a trophy to show for it, and if this is the way I go out, I'm going to go out swinging with a couple of blitzers that are probably more well equipped than I expected them to be. A rat ogre that is making a case for maybe the big guy of the year. We'll see. Um, I just gotta hope that I can get the plane off the ground.
Well, as the guy with three big guys, I will say, I think Craven, three big guys. I would put my vote in. I would put my vote in for Craven Slayer as the big guy of the year. I know Hopper's also been really good, but Craven Slayer, from my understanding, has been really helping anchor your team through these games, doing what they can. I'm looking forward to this match. My only hope is it doesn't end like the last time these two teams have faced, where it was a complete and utter blowout. Also in it was week 9, like 2 weeks before the playoffs.
Yep.
I'd like it to be a bit closer at least, like a 2-1 either way. I think that'd be more fun. Um, the last time we played, I felt like I got diced a bit, but also I kind of tilted and made a lot of bad decisions.
The game was a bit of a wash.
It was a bit of a wash pretty quickly, but I think this time around, this should be a really good game. I hope, if anything, it's like the match I had with Brandon on stream, where both of us are just hitting our dice, doing what we need to do, and it's just blow for blow the whole way through. A really good game. I really want to put on a show. So
Yeah.
So I think,
especially since we're under the lights, I hope that it just ends up being a back and forth that comes down to an obscene chain of events at the end.
yeah, and I think for both of us, this is our playoffs officially start now. I mean,
Yeah, this is basically the wild card game.
This is our wild card. This is our wild card game because if I win this, I clinch. But if you win this, like you said, you still have to wait for me. But again, Buckner, who I play at week 9, he's a wild card. He could pull an upset too. Like I expect any game to go differently. I'm glad I got my shutout this past week. I'd rather not have that in a divisional, but I know the limitations of my team and I know what to expect since we've played before, and I hope it's a good game. I think, like you said, you leveled all your guys up. There's no petty cash. There's no star players or anything. We're just going blow for blow, pound for pound. So I hope it's a good game. I hope we put on a show, and I wish you best of luck. And I hope we both don't get diced. So
Yep.
I'm not even kidding. I hate being diced and I hate seeing diced. I'd rather it be like
it be a
occasional misses, but like when like I like a good competition.
Yep.
So
As a parallel,
you do hate to see it.
like the famous Get Scrunked game when I beat LWA last season, like after the blitz happened that resulted in the third touchdown, I'm like, I don't want to play this game anymore because the game just said I won.
But
I
the
didn't.
memes.
Yeah.
The memes.
Don't get
that's
me
after we
wrong.
put the fourth one in.
Yeah.
The
No.
all-time leader in touchdowns, I'll take it every day of the week.
Right,
but
right.
boy, howdy.
Yeah.
Damn you, Scrunk.
Yeah.
Freya curses you. I will interject and also say that like this matchup is always exciting for me to see on the list just because of the history between these two coaches. Although the teams are pretty different, and they've been different throughout most of the NKBBL's history. it's always good when these two get together.
Always been a heavyweight matchup.
I remember the first season playoffs. These two
Oh.
coaches went together, and it is the only game in KBBL history to go to kicks. These motherfuckers played 24 turns and ended in a tie. A true heavyweight bout, and they're heavyweight coaches, so I'm happy to see it showcased as much as I can get it.
He was dripping when he was putting together the poll. He's like, yes, Brando versus Laws.
Yes.
Injected into my veins.
Yeah, yep. It's good. And I mean, no discredit too, like the Cody versus sorry, why am I spacing so hard? Cody versus, help me out here. Oh, Holloway. Like that's gonna be fire too. There's just
a lot of these games.
There's just not in my vote swayed this way because there's just not as much history between the coaches. But obviously, we're still a pretty young league. This is season 4,
Relatively
so
speaking, yep.
so you know
Season
there's a lot of history to write. But we do have some old guard kicking around, beating each
It doesn't
other
hurt
up,
that
so
we go back way further than the NKBBL. So
that's true.
Oh yeah,
true.
we've played games for a long time.
Yep.
This is just the latest game.
Two guys playing with each other for decades. You know?
Yeah.
And decades to come. But that is all the time I think we have here today. So we will see you as you're watching this later today on twitch.tv. And then if you don't catch the live stream, this will be up on Caval Vision North the next week. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Thank you, coaches, for providing your commentary and input. Any last words before we get out of here? Okay, great. I was waiting for it. I left it open. All right. Anyway, this has been Wartscenter. You guys have been awesome. We'll see you later today.
have a good day, evening, or night.
Woo!